In this picture, it can be seen that the president of Palestine is shaking hands with the president of Israel. But how can this be possible? Because these two countries that have constantly been in conflict with each other, and their people who have constantly been fighting one another. To understand how this can be possible, you have to understand a lot more about Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian government, and mainly Fatah. In this video, we will be focusing on the Fatah political party of Palestine. To greater understand Fatah as a party, we will have to look at the history of Fatah. Fatah was founded by none other than Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian freedom fighter. Yasser Arafat and his friends' goal was the nationalist social liberation of Palestine from Israeli occupation. Yasser Arafat wanted to do this by either an armed liberation war or by diplomacy and agreements. As Yasser Arafat said, "I come bearing an olive branch in one hand and the freedom fighter's gun in the other. Do not let the olive branch fall out of my hand." At this point, Palestine was occupied by three countries. Jordan controlled the West Bank, Egypt controlled Gaza, and the rest was controlled by Israel. The united Palestinian state Yasser Arafat and his friends hoped for did not exist. Instead, Palestinians were forced out of their homes into exile. Some of these Palestinians fled to the Gulf states. Here, they got education. This group of educated Palestinians would then go back to Palestine. This included Yasser Arafat and many of Fatah's later founders. This ideology of the Palestinian diaspora was that the Palestinians would be liberated by their own actions, and not the ones of the other Arab governments of the Middle East. This increasingly popular ideology would slowly form the Palestinian National Liberation Movement, later just called Fatah. After the Six-Day War in 1967, Fatah would rise in popularity. Then, Fatah would join the Palestinian Liberation Organization. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a coalition of various Palestinian freedom fighter groups. Anyways, Fatah would join the PLO, and that same year, Yasser Arafat, the leader of Fatah, would become the new leader of the PLO. Now, Fatah would truly rise the ranks and become the #1 Palestinian freedom group. Under Yasser Arafat's leadership, the PLO and Fatah would launch guerrilla warfare campaigns against Israel. These campaigns would end with the Oslo Peace Accords being signed in 1993 between Israel and the PLO. Yasser Arafat hoped that it would establish a united Palestinian nation. He didn't get exactly what he hoped for, but a partially free Palestinian state was established. With the creation of the Palestinian state, the title of the President of Palestine was established, which was given to Yasser Arafat. After the Oslo Accords, the PLO and Fatah agreed to disarm and halt all armed campaigns, including the guerrilla warfare operations. From then on, Fatah decided to pursue a policy of diplomacy and international reconciliation. This is when Fatah reached its peak of power, with control over the West Bank and Gaza. This peak of power would end with the death of Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat left behind the very popular party of Fatah, and those close to him rose to power. Mahmoud Abbas would become the leader of Fatah, the leader of the PLO, and the president of Palestine. Under Mahmoud Abbas, though, Fatah would decline greatly. This is mainly due to the fact that the Israeli government began increasingly aggressive attacks against Palestine. This meant that Israel had practically broken the Oslo Accords. With Israel abandoning the Oslo Accords, Fatah and Palestine should have, in theory, revoked its anti-fighting policy to combat Israel's increasing aggression. But Mahmoud Abbas insisted on keeping the anti-fighting policy. This led Mahmoud Abbas to lose popularity. And it wouldn't help that him and his government had some serious corruption allegations as well. Also, the land which was considered Palestine was a disputed topic. Fatah and its leadership were moving more towards a Palestinian state built in the West Bank and Gaza. Meanwhile, many Palestinians hoped that the whole land would be part of Palestine. This, paired with the fact that Mahmoud Abbas, Fatah, and the Palestinian government continued negotiations with Israel, even though Israel was bombing Palestinians in the Fatah-controlled Palestinian regions. These events culminated in the Gaza Strip, where long before, Palestinians angry with Fatah's appeasement process with Israel formed their own militia group to combat Fatah and Israel. This group would be known as Hamas. Hamas would directly challenge Fatah for control over the Gaza Strip in 2007. But over the years, Fatah had grown weaker due to its disarmament policy, and due to Fatah's decline in popularity, the Hamas was easily able to take over the Gaza Strip, where it resides today. This obviously caused a divide between Fatah and the Hamas. You might think this is only because of the conflict between the two in Gaza, but many other reasons also cause divide between them. Fatah is a secular party that prefers diplomacy and reconciliation over armed resistance. Meanwhile, Hamas is a religious party that favors armed resistance and guerrilla warfare tactics to fight Israeli occupation. This brings us to the modern day, where Fatah controls the West Bank. With the war between the Hamas and Israel breaking out last month, people are predicting if Fatah and Mahmoud Abbas's government could intervene. But we have to ask, why would Fatah help Hamas against Israel? Mainly, what reason would Fatah have to join? As you can see from the thumbnail of this video, Fatah might prefer Israel over the Hamas. You might think that due to their existing divide, Fatah has a 0% probability of joining on Hamas's side. But that is not exactly true. You see, Fatah hasn't fully disarmed. Its Al-Aqsa martyr brigades still exist in the West Bank, where they protect the Golden Dome Mosque from Israeli attacks. With Israel preparing for a ground invasion of Gaza, Israel is having to draw troops off the West Bank. This leaves a golden opportunity for Fatah and its remaining militants to attack Israel. But then again, why would they? Well, Mahmoud Abbas has repeatedly denounced Israel for its occupation. Abbas, the Palestinian government, and Fatah are also extremely displeased that Palestinian civilians are dying in Fatah-controlled West Bank, even though both sides are officially at peace. The Golden Dome Mosque and other Islamic shrines in the West Bank have repeatedly been aggressively attacked in the West Bank. These reasons make Fatah and Abbas increasingly displeased and concerned with Israel's motives, and so that answers Fatah's motivation in a possible intervention. In the end, it is Mahmoud Abbas's decision, as he may choose to hold on to his power and stay neutral, or he could bring Fatah back into the political game by intervention. It really comes down to who Fatah, Mahmoud Abbas, hates more, Hamas or Israel. As of now, Mahmoud Abbas has already denounced both of them because of their use of violence, and the future for intervention by Fatah is uncertain.